NFL rookie stock report through the lens of Dynasty football. Skill position players. Whose stocks are we buying? Short term, long term on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our listeners out there, our everydayers, and we appreciate it when you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Hoping you're having a pleasant Memorial Day weekend as we bring a little holiday special episode here. And obviously thinking about all the things that you think about on a Memorial Day as we talk about some rookie ADPs and rankings here. Today's episode, by the way, of Peacock and Williamson is sponsored by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. And we're going to start diving a little bit more into some, fantasy football stuff, which is always a lot of fun. And it's another way to look at the league. And a lot of folks out there and a lot of listeners out there, I know, are into fantasy football and rankings and those types of things. But today's show, Matt, I wanted to kind of look at just the stocks, how we view these rookie skill position guys. And we're going to use the lens of dynasty football drafts and their average draft position to what we think the value is of players who's underrated right now, who might have really nice NFL careers and who might be the ones that jump out really early in their NFL careers and provide tons of statistical performances and value for, fans and dynasty players alike.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think it's an interesting way to look through the league. There's so many smart fantasy analysts out there that come up with great numbers, different angles, playing time, all kinds of different things were invented to view the league through fantasy now. And I find it funny. I got to tell a quick story. So I was at like year 4 of my ESPN career, maybe even younger. And I went to our editors and I was like, hey, I've played fantasy forever. Why don't I start writing some fantasy articles? They're like, Matt, you were a scout in the league. That's beneath you. What are you talking about? Meanwhile, Matthew Berry's like on fire on the fantasy angle of it. But it was so long ago, people didn't respect the fantasy community half as much as they do now, and it was craziness to me. So what we're doing here is I'm personally in 6 different dynasty leagues, 5 of which are standard, 1 super flex. And I've had 4 of the 6 drafts completed already. 2 of them over this past weekend. 2 of them are coming this next weekend. And I've gone through these rookie drafts and there's a lot of interesting decisions to make. I mean, it's a very wide receiver heavy crop, as you could imagine. 1 tight end is a big deal. It's a good quarterback crop, even though they're not as valuable in standard. Running backs are a little suspect. So if we go through the ADP, I think it's pretty interesting and wonder what we agree with, what values you can get, things like that too. There's a couple guys I've been getting in every draft.
The one thing shocks me, and I guess it shouldn't be that shocking, and I haven't done any, dynasty or fantasy draft. I'm actually trying in my life to do fewer and fewer fantasy leagues every single year, and I'm down to 1 fantasy football league that I do every year and 1 fantasy baseball league that I do every year. I'm having trouble right now even paying attention and setting my lineups for that fantasy baseball league. And it's one that I founded 15 years ago. And so it's hard. And I gave up, commissionership a while back. And so that's where I'm at with the fantasy thing. But there's so many great, I have a tough time figuring out who's marrying the important numbers and the film, Matt. And because I know a lot of the really brilliant fantasy folks out there dive so much into the numbers of things and they care so much about the numbers, there's still some missing aspects of that and how these things go together. And so, and you always get really excited about the rookies, right? Are people too excited about Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's obviously going to be the number 1, rookie asset for fantasy, either whether it's dynasty or redraft players. And, he's got the right name. He's got the right measurables. He went to a big school and produced big time and produced early. He's a really, really clean prospect, and he was the first non-quarterback drafted this year for a reason. But he's going in the middle of the first round in startup drafts in Dynasty League. He's the sixth player, not like overall. So he's being drafted in the same place that Justin Jefferson, who's already proven he's an NFL guy, is getting drafted just about.
Yeah, and just real quick, I want people to realize, I mean, not everyone plays Dynasty. So when we talk about these ranks, it's a blend of what you're going to get out of them now, plus the future. You're predicting their career, how long you get to keep them forever. And I pulled it up just now just to double check. I mean, if it's a startup draft, if there's 12 of us in the league and none of us have any players and we're starting over, it goes Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Bijan Robinson, and then Marvin Harrison ahead of guys like Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall and A.J. Brown. I mean, Tyreek. I mean, a lot of these guys that are very big-time contributors now. I don't know that that's crazy, and I think he's an obvious slam dunk as the rookie first pick in all your rookie drafts. But in redraft, this is a little off topic, well, sort of. He's going in the middle of the second round now in like your standard home leagues. You know what I mean? I mean,
you're not expecting any rookie time that is, some incubation period that maybe things he's figuring out the league. He's figuring out his team's offense. His quarterback is figuring him out. It's like wide receiver 1, day 1, let's go Marvin Harrison. And I can't really even fight it, but it's rare that you have a rookie going that high. And wide receiver can take some time sometimes.
Yeah.
To reach your peak. It's a year 2, year 3 position usually when guys hit their peak in the NFL at wide receiver.
That's why I basically agree with his Dynasty ADP right now in all regards. But I don't think when I'm drafting with my buddies on Labor Day weekend, I'm using a mid-second round pick on Marvin Harrison Jr.
The second player is Malik Nabers. He is going, round 2 in those startup Dynasty leagues right now. He's wide receiver 10 overall in the entire league in those Dynasty leagues. How do you like Malik Nabers short and long term here? Because he would seem to be, someone who's kind of a slam dunk in both of those aspects. Maybe not quite to the point of Marvin Harrison, but I like his stock short and long as well.
I do too. I love it. I mean, I just adore the player. I mean, very little target competition. Certainly there are quarterback questions. I mean, when you're thinking about what's this offense going to look like the next couple of years, will Dayball even be there? But that's not uncommon with most. I mean, the NFL stands for not for long. I mean, I think he's an immediate producer. I think he's such a talented player. He should be a target hog forever and ever, basically. So him going 2 is a slam dunk. And really the first 3 in every draft I've been in have just gone Harrison, Nabers, Odunze. You know what I mean? Like they're elite prospects that are only being held back by the guy who's slightly more elite.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they went in the draft. That's how they should probably be drafted here. And, talent-wise, all way up there. Odunze just year 1 has a tougher path to targets
That's a problem.
than the other guys. But for that reason, I'm probably buying Odunze over Nabers because I don't think the gap is so huge. And all it takes is one Keenan Allen injury, which we've seen every single year of his career, just about, right? For Odunze to have that same opportunity to be, one of the top 2 options in his team's passing game, like the other 2 guys. So I kind of like where Odunze's at right now, stock-wise, because you don't have to fight to get him as much as you have to with Harrison and Nabers, and the upside's still there. And, it takes one tweaked ankle, and now he's got just the same sort of a window of target share as maybe the other 2 guys do.
Yeah, and I do think Allen's a 1-year rental, so if you think big picture, Odunze could easily be the leading receiver in a year from now.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to come into the league with his quarterback. They get to learn this thing together. I would room them together if I were the Bears. You know what I mean? Like we're going to get these guys growing exponentially with one another. However, right or wrong, it hurts Odunze a little bit because wide receiver 1 last year was Jackson Smith-Njigba, and he kind of went to a similar situation with 2 stud receivers and didn't produce. And people kind of look at it like, I'm not happy with my selection of a year ago. This could just be the same.
So you swoop in year 2 because Jackson Smith and Jigba you could probably get, and we see this
Right.
with
That's the move.
Year 2, you can get a guy at a better bargain than you could when you drafted them as rookies, knowing already they weren't going to produce as rookies.
Right. Or watch it. You can't get the number 3 in your rookie draft, and Odunze, of course, goes, and bummer. I'd love to have him, but by week 8, he might have 20 catches, and he's kind of just out there in 3 receiver sets. That's when you make your offer. You know what I mean? Just like to go get JSN right now.
So that's a slam dunk top at the wide receiver position. I want to talk about the next group of wide receivers where it gets very interesting because now you really are weighing now versus future potential, statistical production, what offense they're in, what quarterbacks are throwing them the footballs. And I want to talk running backs and quarterbacks, obviously, as well. Whose stock are we buying most going forward through the lens of Dynasty football drafts next? Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now at FanDuel, you can get $150 extra in bonus bets to play with if you win your first $5 bet. More on that in a moment because it's winner take all time right now in the NBA and the NHL. FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own with 150 extra bucks to play with. Bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and a whole lot more. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count. And it's not just about playoffs at FanDuel. Every sport you can imagine, combat sports, motor sports, of course, Major League Baseball, every day, all summer long, there are games to bet on, and NFL futures, offensive rookies of the year, like we're talking about today. You have a favorite sleeper, you can get some nice little odds on some of those guys. Defensive rookie of the year, who's going to win the next Super Bowl? All of it you can find at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So the next group of wide receivers, I'm going to read off what the order of their average draft position is, Matt, and let's talk through this and which guys you like maybe more or less than consensus from a short and long-term perspective. So after Harrison, Malik Nabers, and Rome Odunze, no surprise, they're 1, 2, 3. The next wide receiver up is Xavier Worthy. Now, there's a nice little gap after Odunze, but Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 4. He's wide receiver 27 overall, dropping from wide receiver 16, where Rome Odunze is being drafted in startup drafts. Then you have Ladd McConkey is the next wide receiver with a running back and a tight end rookie in between those two guys. Brian Thomas then who was widely thought as wide receiver 4 going to Jacksonville. That might be something worth talking about here for a second, with him being the 5th wide receiver in these, 6th wide receiver, after McConkey and Worthy in startup drafts. Then you have Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Legette, and Adonai Mitchell in the top 100 of Dynasty average draft position at wide receiver with those rookies.
So let's concentrate on the front 4, because I think Coleman, Thomas, McConkey, Worthy all have at least some sort of case to be wide receiver 4. Pearsall I like, but he's not going to play much this year. Legette, those guys are more early second round rookie picks. They're not really in the mix for wide receiver 4. And as you said, Worthy seems like the most drafted of the group, and I think he's definitely benefiting from the Rashee Rice situation as well. And obviously his landing spot has everyone abuzz, and I don't dislike him. But Coleman's my 4 of that group. And I was forced to kind of put my money where my mouth is, where I had to take wide receiver 4 with the structure of my team. So I had to make this decision just yesterday. And I took Thomas. And I wanted to move back 2 spots and let people make the decision for me, because I think Thomas, McConkey, and Worthy are all pretty close. And Coleman's 4th of that group. And I don't dislike him. I just like him a little less than those dudes. But I went with Thomas just because I kind of fell for the prototypical height, weight, speed, and all that good stuff. And they all have good quarterback situations. Great quarterback situations.
Why do you think Brian Thomas isn't the consensus wide receiver 4 in fantasy leagues like he was for NFL draft nicks?
Yeah, and he did drop a little in the draft, but still, I don't look at like Ingram and Kirk and the guys they have right now as massive competition. And even if he's a little raw, he's a great touchdown producer just for fantasy reasons. Like,
He's got a quarterback who can get the ball
Yeah.
out to him down the field. So I like that part of it. I think he should be able to play just as early as the rest of these guys.
Yeah. And I will say, if it were redraft, if I were only picking these guys for this season, I would probably take McConkey. I just think he'll get more targets than Thomas and Worthy and probably Coleman as well. But 2 years from now, you might really regret passing on Brian Thomas.
Right. Target wise, Coleman and McConkey are the play. And they're the short-term stocks. The only question I have was with McConkey is I think he's going to get targeted and he's going to get open. The question I have is he going to be able to handle that target share? He's not the biggest guy, and he's been hurt in college. And you look at his college production, you're like, man, why wasn't this guy more productive in college? And part of it is because there was targets going to other good players there, including the tight end on his own.
Tight end we haven't brought up yet. Yeah.
And Keon Coleman, I still have some questions about, his separation down the field. So that's one where it's like, I like the landing spot. I like the target share, which makes me like Coleman more. And is he going to earn his quarterback's trust early in his career will be a huge key for Keon Coleman. So he could be a bust. He could be someone that just goes big and is allowed to thrive in that offense with Josh Allen throwing him the football. But I like Brian Thomas, I think, more than those guys. I do like Worthy because of his landing spot. But with Thomas and Worthy, they probably don't project as much as PPR monsters and target share, even though they could produce from a yardage and touchdowns perspective. So these are all fascinating and hard to really parse out for me. I am a little surprised Thomas isn't going higher in these drafts because of where he was drafted versus, where Worthy and McConkey are going. And then
his traits. I mean, he has crazy traits,
Xavier Legette is hard because I don't know where the upside is for him because
I've been avoiding him.
Like Worthy and like Thomas, Legette, is he going to be targeted enough? He's kind of a one-dimensional guy, and is that offense going to be high volume? Is he going to earn a huge target share? Because in one respect, the Panthers have a very, varied skill sets with their wide receiver group, but they're all so specific. Something odd about that group that's been put together, and I would probably, need to get a nice little deal and need to get Legette a little bit later. I'd probably take Odunze Mitchell over Legette for both short and long term because that's a boomer bust thing. If it doesn't work out, it's okay, but you're picking him 99. I'm okay with that with what he could be. And then Ricky Pearsall, he's just blocked. Like he's going to get
it's next year.
15 catches as a rookie, right? A rookie first round wide receiver, and then goes huge in year 2. But even when you look ahead at the 49ers offense and the Shanahan offense, it's not a McVay high volume. He's not going to be Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, even if he has a bigger role in the offense, even if Debo gets hurt this year, because they just aren't a high volume passing game. And so that's where Ricky Pearsall would probably be one of the players I pass on and maybe just take a shot at what Odunze Mitchell's ceiling would be over someone like Ricky Pearsall. And Pearsall is much more year 2, year 3 guy than year 1, just because he's blocked in San Francisco with so many playmakers.
So they're kind of the tier 3 rookie receivers, Pearsall, Legette, Mitchell. And I've been avoiding Legette. I just don't love the situation. I don't love the organization, the quarterback, all those things. And you're 100% right on Pearsall. Like, it's hard to use a top 12, 13, 14 rookie pick on a guy that you probably can't start all year. Like he just sits on your bench the entire year. But if you were the league winner and you earned the 12 spot, maybe you're already loaded at receiver and you just stash him away on your practice squad more or less and hope for, that's a bet on Shanahan to me. Like they use this pick for a reason. He could be a target monster a year from now, hopefully, but who's to say? So that leads me to think what you were saying is I've been taking Odunze Mitchell ahead of both of them, and gladly. I've been trading up in the second round to go get Mitchell earlier than most people are willing to spend. And it's the Brian Thomas stuff. It's traits, big, strong, fast goes a long way with me for building a dynasty team.
Yeah, and I think he just has the body type, the stylistic type of a player who could be a all 3 level type of a guy, and if it hits, it hits huge. Versus when someone like Brian Thomas Jr., if it hits, he still might be not a huge target share guy, but a downfield type of a player. Where Mitchell might see the ball with a higher volume underneath stuff, intermediate stuff. So that's where you swing for someone like Odunze Mitchell. But he was still, a high mid-second round pick in the NFL draft. Who's this year's Puka Nacua? Who's this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown that was a middle round guy, 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick, Matt, that hits huge? And why is it Pittsburgh Steeler Roman Wilson?
Could be. I've been warming up to Wilson because I really thought the Steelers were going to have a better receiver room at this stage of the game. And I'm looking at the options desperately, and they seem to be drying up. And opportunities will arise, but I think Wilson has a really good chance to be the number 2 when they line up in 12 personnel with 2 receivers on the field. And if that's the case, then he's probably right behind these 3.
Right. And so I don't know if he's a perfect fit for how Russell Wilson plays at quarterback.
Right.
But what is the common thread for these young players that come in and overcome their draft or play better than their draft spot? And it's like, okay, they're ready to play. They've played a lot of football, leaders, tough leader, right? And so like Roman Wilson starts to hit a lot of those things. And then you look at his opportunity and what his target share could be. And you start to look and like, okay, might have something here. And look, I trust when it comes to drafting receivers, I trust the Packers and I definitely trust the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
So Roman Wilson's a really interesting one to me to take a flyer on in redraft leagues, even to have some rookie production to outproduce some guys that were drafted ahead of him. And also in the dynasty category as well. Jalen Polk, Jermaine Burton are the next couple of wide receivers up. Some interesting names there.
I've gotten every one of my drafts. Burton,
Okay.
I've been going crazy on. I've been trading up to get him. I'm taking him way ahead ADP, all on talent. And I just think Higgins won't be back next year, and he's going to be Joe Burrow's number 2. Sign me up.
And more talent than where his draft spot was because of his college path as he became a pro. And if he's a pro, then he'll probably hit pretty big for you.
Mm-hmm. And a mid to early 2nd round rookie pick, if he does something stupid and is out of the league, so be it. But I'm swinging hard on that and moving up to get him every chance I get.
Tight end, quarterback, running back. What can we learn from the ADPs of those? And there's really mostly one tight end to talk about. Where do you draft Brock Bowers next? This episode of Peacock and Williamson is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even easier and faster than before. And it was already really fast and easy at Game Time. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. We're talking killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. If you're not going to an NBA Finals game, you can find your favorite baseball team and those tickets really easily. I love jumping into San Francisco. I'm 10 minutes across the bridge, going to the city. If I got an extra evening off, last-minute tickets, I got some tickets for $11 the other day. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can find some awesome deals on tickets, especially last-minute variety. You can buy tickets up to an hour after your event starts. And when we're talking about events, it's not just NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA tickets. We're talking concerts, comedy shows, theater events, whatever it is near you, you can find it. And I love the all-in pricing. You see the total up front, so you don't get hit with those surprise fees at checkout. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Let's knock out the Bowers conversation super quick because there really isn't any other tight ends to talk about, early in drafts.
So he is tight end 1, obviously, and he's the 4th rookie in Dynasty ADP, coming in just behind where Xavier Worthy is as the 4th wide receiver. To be honest with you, I'm kind of shocked he's not ahead of Worthy in average draft position. Why do you think that is? Is Michael Mayer playing a role in that? Is it just that Worthy got drafted by the team that won the last couple Super Bowls and has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, if you rewind 10 minutes, I think Worthy's getting a little overhyped. Like I liked Brian Thomas better. I might like McConkey better. I think people are a little overreacting to Worthy because even if Rice gets suspended, he's not going away probably. He's probably going to be a Chief for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So nobody bats an eye, though, if your rookie draft goes Harrison, Nabers, Odunze, Bowers. Everybody understands it. We had this conversation with Kyle Pitts a couple of years ago. Some people are philosophically against taking a tight end that high because, I mean, I can live with Njoku or Freiermuth, people will say, or boy, maybe he has a higher bust rate than other positions. And these quarterbacks aren't great. But I don't fault anyone for taking him fourth in a rookie draft.
Do you prefer Brock Bowers or Dalton Kincaid for this year?
Kincaid for this year and the future.
And the future. So you're a Kincaid over Bowers guy.
Yes. I mean, situation's way better. Competition's easy. There's no Devontae Adams. I've seen a year of him. Kincaid to me is probably only behind Laporta for Dynasty.
Brock Bowers is tight end 4. Are Kincaid and Laporta? I don't have the list of the guys that are in front of them.
I'll look super quick. Laporta is tight end 1.
Okay.
Then there's a gap, and it's McBride. That makes sense. And then Andrews, Bowers, Pitts. So Kincaid is behind those guys, which I don't understand. Kincaid's actually tight end 7.
Okay, so Kincaid's the best value in
Go get him.
tight end right now, or you just wait and you see how long Kittle and Travis Kelce hang on for you, and find out what the next crop of tight ends are going to be in a couple of years, which might be the way to go at that position, because tight ends are a weird position because those top tight ends don't always hit, and they don't always hit right away either. And McBride's a great example of, like, he was free last year, right?
Oh yeah, he sat on him. Yeah, 100%. I mean, he was a second round pick. He wasn't a top. He didn't go like Bowers and Pitts in his real draft,
right?
But still, I mean, people that invested at Pitts as a top 5 rookie pick weren't real happy or aren't real happy. I mean, he's still going high. I just mentioned him. He's going above Kincaid, which I think is bonkers, but that doesn't help Bowers' cause either, right or wrong.
I would say the next tight end who's down quite a bit, we're talking about 150 overall. Ben Sinnott is an interesting player for me if you can get him in the right spot. Any other sleeper tight ends we're talking about here in the rookie drafts? I
mean, I take some swings on like Eric All in the 5th round, and some upside dudes. I've ended up with Jared Wiley's the other one.
I was going to say Wiley because obviously if there's an injury to Travis Kelce, that could become,
or even a retirement a year from now. I mean,
right.
Maybe, I mean, he's talented.
Any other wide receivers, by the way? Because Malachi Corley went the first pick in the 3rd round. The Jets seem to love him. He could be someone who gets targeted a lot in a Deebo Samuel kind of a way. That's the guy that always gets comped to, former running back, wide back style usage. Troy Franklin's a really interesting one to me. He's, you can draft him really late, and he is going to play with his college quarterback, and he's got a ton of ability, and that could hit big. And if you're telling me I could get Troy Franklin at pick 150 versus I got to get Xavier Worthy at pick 40, I think I'd go Franklin.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, a couple other guys I'd throw out there. I didn't end up with Javon Baker in any of my leagues, but I'm a fan, and I could see him and Polk having equal value a year from now.
Well, I like that as a sneaky,
sneaky one, yeah.
Rookie that explodes for his team and just earns.
He could.
Earns a huge role.
Maybe is he the Nakua? I mean, it probably won't be a Nakua, but
yeah, some toughness, doesn't blow you away, height, weight, speed. Yeah. He's a really good player. There is a path to him winning a job over a wide receiver that was drafted in front of him in his own draft, and some veterans that don't really blow you away there either. Is nobody is in his way. If he turns a dude,
turns into a dude. And like, I didn't think Luke McCaffrey was a 3rd round NFL player, but if the Commanders do, and he's a slot machine that catches a ton of passes, that's better for fantasy than maybe real life.
Yeah, I would probably swing, and they're able back with Ben Sinnott, the tight end, and Luke McCaffrey. Yeah. I'd probably go Sinnott over McCaffrey there if I was putting stock into one of the Washington pass catchers, just because of who's in front of him on the depth chart. Anyway, we got to talk quarterbacks and running backs here. Let's go quarterbacks really quick. Redraft, like, could somebody blow up as a rookie? Is there a CJ Stroud like run for Caleb Williams here, who's clearly going to be quarterback 1 in all these leagues? I think it's fascinating that ESPN has projected Caleb Williams to throw for 3,532 passing yards and 23 touchdowns as a rookie, which, if that projection comes, it's not too crazy. If that projection comes through, It would be 5th most passing yards for any Bears quarterback ever in the history of the franchise in the season. And Rome Odunze, someone mentioned to him, hey, could you break the all-time record of receiving yards career for a Bears receiver? And it's like 5,000 yards. He could do it before his rookie contract's over.
He absolutely could. And hopefully for the Bears, that comes to fruition. I mean, I absolutely think Jaden Daniels could be a monster. If he runs for 700 or 800 yards, I mean, I would, in redraft, I would take Daniels over Williams. And I think Williams is going way too high in rookie drafts. I mean, he's going in that Brian Thomas, McConkey, Keon Coleman neighborhood. And that's too rich for me. I mean, in one quarterback leagues. I mean, sometimes he goes first overall in Superflex.
So obviously it's a big stock up, but you got to pay for it with Caleb Williams. Is there another quarterback in this class of the 6 first rounders that you're putting your stock into, Matt?
In a way, I mean, you can get May, McCarthy, and Nix really cheap in some of these drafts. And I actually used the first round pick on Nix in a Superflex at like 11 or 12. Because I think he's going to start. I mean, and he fits the system. I don't love the player, but I mean, that doesn't matter for fantasy necessarily.
I love the combination for Jaden Daniels with some veteran pass catchers he's walking into. His running ability, if we're talking just, fantasy usage here. So he has that out as far as producing, even if he's not, throwing darts out there and things are playing pretty fast for him early in his career. He's played a lot of football in college. So it's not a guy who's just had one good college season. He's a 23-year-old prospect. He's not some kid that's coming into the league. He's been around a little bit. And so I like that combination of things for Jaden Daniels. So from a fantasy perspective, I'm pretty high on Jaden Daniels and what he could even potentially do as a rookie, as long as he's getting protected up front. He does have escapability if the line's not protecting him, great. But I'm a fan of Jaden Daniels, and Drake Maye's the opposite for me. I don't know how long that's going to take.
I don't know the May will play at all this year, so, and that kind of reflects though in his rookie draft ADP. You can get him pretty late and just throw him on your bench and never use him,
And as far as JJ McCarthy, I like the situation. I like the coaching staff, really young guy. How long that's going to take, I don't know. I would take a flyer late if you can get it. As far as Dynasty goes, wouldn't touch him in redraft. I wouldn't touch, obviously, Penix in redraft. Bo Nix could play the earliest. He could be like,
that's kind of the allure to me.
It's kind of top 3 of rookie producers, most likely, in my mind, of this class. And if he had the most production of all the rookie quarterbacks, would that shock you? It probably shouldn't.
Not too much, right?
You look long term, and it's like, I don't know if that's really the stock I want to attach myself to, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. I mean, just in Superflex, there's such value of having one of the true starters. But in one quarterback, swing for the fences. Don't use a mid-second round pick on Bo Nix just because he might have a decent rookie year. I mean, just because his rookie year might be, Derek Carr-esque, like that's not good enough for me to win my redraft league.
All right, we're going to save running backs for tomorrow's episode, Matt.
Okay, that's a long conversation. Yeah,
it's a longer conversation. I think there's more to parse out with the running backs, and we could kind of look more redraft and how these guys fit in, because with running backs, they matter a lot more in your fantasy leagues than they do in the real NFL, and how you can utilize the power of those rookie running backs and who could show up really early for your fantasy teams. So we'll talk running backs, rookie stock on tomorrow's episode. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you are listening to this podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.